Glad you're here. I'm Maria, and this is Beyond Fluent English. In the last episode, we worked on opinion language, the difference between saying I think and saying I would argue, between I don't agree and I am not entirely persuaded. Today we stay in the same territory, but we move one step deeper. Because opinion language is only half of the picture. The other half is what you say when someone else speaks. When they make a point and you want to respond, agree, disagree, or something in between. That moment, that exchange, is where a lot of advanced English actually lives. Today I am going to give you 5 upgrades for the phrases you use in those moments. The basic versions work. I agree, I disagree, you're right. But the upgrades tell the listener something more, that you are listening carefully, that you have a real position, and that you are comfortable holding it in conversation. And at the end of the episode, we will practice together. There is a shadowing section where I ask you to repeat 3 of these phrases out loud. Speaking them, not just hearing them, is what moves them from something you recognize into something you can actually use. So stay with me for that part. Let us begin. You said, I agree, and it worked. The message got through. But that moment, the moment when someone makes a real point and you respond to it, can do more work than that. Today, we look at exactly how. The first upgrade, instead of I agree, say, I couldn't agree more. I agree is correct and honest. Nothing is wrong with it. But it tells the listener only the basic fact, that you share their position. It does not tell them how much you share it, or that their point actually landed with you. I couldn't agree more adds weight. The structure is worth understanding. In English, a negative form is often used to express the strongest possible version of something. I couldn't care less means I care zero. I couldn't agree more means I agree completely. The negative pushes the meaning to its maximum. When Sophia finishes a long presentation, arguing that the team needs to slow down and plan more carefully before building, and you say, I couldn't agree more, you are not just confirming her position, you are validating it. You are saying, this is exactly what I think, and I am glad you said it. In a personal conversation, the same phrase carries real warmth. Daniel had been saying for years that his family needed to stop going to the same place every summer and try something new. When his sister finally came around, she did not say, I agree. She said, I couldn't agree more. I have been thinking the same thing for ages. That last part, I have been thinking the same thing, is a natural addition. I couldn't agree more invites it. It opens a space for you to continue rather than closing the exchange. One note on register. This phrase carries enthusiasm. It fits moments where your agreement genuinely means something. For small, ordinary agreements, yes, the meeting ran long, it would sound disproportionate. Save it for moments that deserve that weight. The second upgrade. Instead of I disagree, say I'd push back on that. I disagree is precise and direct, and there are contexts where that is exactly what you need. A formal debate, a written statement, a moment where clarity matters more than tone. But in most professional and social conversations, I disagree lands as a full stop. It puts you and the other person on opposite sides of a line and leaves the conversation there. I'd push back on that does something different. It signals disagreement, clearly, but it stays in the conversation. It says, I have heard your point. I have taken it seriously, and I want to add something to it. The dialogue keeps moving. Tomasz is in a planning meeting. His colleague argues that the new process should be rolled out across all departments at once. Tomasz is not convinced. Instead of, I disagree, which might close the discussion before it develops, he says, I'd push back on that. I think a phased rollout gives us much more room to learn and adjust. The phrase, I'd push back on that, followed by a reason, is a complete conversational move. It shows confidence without aggression. It invites a response rather than ending things. In a personal context, if a friend says you should leave your current job and you are not sure that is right for you, you might say, "I'd push back on that slightly. I think timing matters a lot here, and I am not ready to decide." The word slightly is optional, but it is worth knowing. It softens the disagreement without weakening it. It tells the other person, "I am not dismissing your idea. I am questioning one part of it." The third upgrade, instead of "you're right," say, "That's a fair point." These two phrases sound close, but they do different things. "You're right" is generous, and sometimes it is exactly what the moment calls for. But in a back and forth where you are also holding a position, "you're right" can feel like a full concession, like you are stepping back from your own argument entirely. "That's a fair point" does something more precise. It gives the other person real credit. It acknowledges that what they said has genuine merit, without meaning that you agree with everything or that the conversation is finished. The word fair is doing real work here. Fair does not mean completely correct. It means the point deserves to be taken seriously, and you are taking it seriously. That is exactly what you signal when you say it. Imagine Nina is discussing a proposal with her manager. Her manager raises a concern. The timeline is ambitious, and the team is already stretched. Nina has her reasons for the timeline and is not ready to abandon it, but she knows the concern is legitimate. She says, "That's a fair point, and I want to make sure we address it." What I'd suggest is building in a review after the first phase. That structure, acknowledging and then continuing, is one of the most useful moves in professional English. You give the other person credit, and then you add to the conversation rather than ending it. "That's a fair point" makes the whole structure possible. In a reflective context, this phrase also signals intellectual honesty. If someone challenges a decision you made and they are at least partly right, you might say, "That's a fair point. I hadn't looked at it from that angle." That is not defeat. That is the language of someone who thinks carefully. Now repeat each sentence after me. Take the full pause before moving on. "I couldn't agree more. That's exactly the kind of approach we need." "I couldn't agree more. That's exactly the kind of approach we need." "I'd push back on that slightly. I think there's more to consider here." "I'd push back on that slightly. I think there's more to consider here." "That's a fair point, and it's worth taking seriously before we decide." "That's a fair point, and it's worth taking seriously before we decide." The fourth upgrade, instead of "exactly," say "that tracks." Exactly is one of the most common response words in English conversation. It works. It signals agreement quickly and clearly. But like any word used constantly, it can start to sound automatic, a filler rather than a real response. "That tracks" is a more contemporary, conversational alternative. It means, "What you said makes sense to me. The logic holds, the reasoning follows." It has a slightly analytical quality. It says, "I have processed what you said, and it checks out." Rachel is explaining to her colleague why a client went quiet after their last meeting. She says, "I think we moved too fast and didn't leave enough space for their concerns." Her colleague says, "That tracks." Simple, direct, and it tells Rachel that her reasoning has been heard and accepted as logical. In a reflective conversation, this phrase can carry warmth as well. If a friend explains a pattern in their own behavior, why they always take on too much, or why they find it hard to ask for help, and you say, "That tracks," quietly, it means, "I understand why, and I have noticed it too." That is a generous and honest thing to say. A note on register. "That tracks" is informal and fairly contemporary. It belongs in conversations with colleagues, in messages to friends, in relaxed professional settings. In a formal report or presentation, it would feel out of place. Know where you are. The fifth upgrade, instead of "I don't think so," say "I'm not entirely convinced." "I don't think so" is often read as a soft refusal, a polite version of no. It closes the conversation without explaining why. "I'm not entirely convinced" does more. It tells the listener that you have genuinely considered their argument, that it has some merit, but that you have not been fully persuaded yet. The phrase "not entirely" is important. It leaves the door open. It says, "You have given me something real to think about, just not quite enough to move me all the way." James is reviewing a proposal for a product launch. His colleague argues they should move to market quickly. There is a window, and they should take it. James sees the logic, but he has doubts about the preparation. He says, "I'm not entirely convinced we're ready. I'd want to see the user testing results before we commit." He is not dismissing the idea. He is naming what he needs before he can agree. That is a much more specific and useful response than "I don't think so." In a personal context, "I'm not entirely convinced we should go this weekend. The forecast looks difficult, and I'd rather not rush it." The same structure: genuine consideration, clear position, door left open. Here is a short story using all 5 phrases. Clara had just finished presenting her proposal to the team. She was fairly confident, but she knew Leo would have something to say. Leo leaned forward. "I'd push back on that timeline," he said. "We are already at capacity, and this adds 3 new deliverables in Q3. Clara nodded. "That's a fair point. It is a real constraint. What I'd argue, though, is that 2 of those deliverables can run in parallel if we bring in support earlier." Leo considered that. "That tracks," he said slowly. "I hadn't seen it that way." Anna, who had been listening, said, "I couldn't agree more with the parallel structure. I've seen it work in very similar situations." Their manager looked around the table. She heard 3 people move through disagreement and towards something better in under 5 minutes. No one said, "I agree." No one said, "I disagree." Something more careful than that. Something that sounded like real thinking. Let us do a quick challenge. I will give you a basic phrase. The upgrade comes right after. Someone makes a point you fully share. You say, "I agree." The upgrade, "I couldn't agree more." Someone proposes a plan you are skeptical of. You say, "I don't think so." The upgrade, "I'm not entirely convinced." A colleague raises a concern that is valid, even if you are not ready to change your position. You say, "You're right." The upgrade, "That's a fair point." What all 5 of these upgrades have in common is worth saying out loud. They keep the conversation alive. "I agree" closes a loop. "I couldn't agree more" opens one. "I disagree" can end a dialogue. "I'd push back on that" continues it. The difference between these pairs is not just vocabulary, it is a way of being in conversation. Advanced speakers tend to treat exchange as a collaborative space rather than a series of positions to defend. These phrases are the vocabulary of that approach. In the next episode, we move to language of describing people, and the difference between saying someone is confident and saying someone has presence is exactly the kind of distinction we will unpack.